Okay. Uh, Thank you for joining me so early. The reason that there are a couple of reasons rather that we are joining at this particular hour of the day. One thing that I spoke about the other day, the fact that I have my PG lectures clashing with our timings as such. And since we have two of these lectures on Saturday, I thought of cutting down on one to start with. Let us see if we would be requiring both the lectures for Saturday as such. So I thought of initially let me cut down on a few things, and because now the undergraduate and the postgraduate things are a bit of mismatch, I would say, as far as scheduling is concerned. By the time we go ahead with our syllabus, the PG students will be finishing with their first semester, so possibly we could be having both the lectures on Saturday in some time to come. I'll announce that as such. Secondly, this is some sort of an experiment, I would rather say, that I am performing with regards the paper that we are supposed to be doing this semester. That's human geography as such. My personal belief is was that one that we your classes went off for a significant period of time for the exam purpose. We finished our first semester and then you went into your exams. And uh, just like, I think, just like even in the college days, when you finish your exams offline also, you long for going into the classrooms basically because during the period of the examination, now all this is a part of human geography, understanding human psyche, understanding the human mind, and understanding the human behavior. You could say that I am referring to that topic which we the other day saw in your syllabus on contemporary issues as such. How does the human mind think? I gave you examples of it the other day also. And the fact that though we are, when we were offline, unfortunately now you all have never been offline in SP college as such, but then whenever we were offline at any stage in the educational part of this as such, you'll see that always, irrespective of who is teaching, what is being taught in the class as such, that sense of being together, and that's what society is, that's what sociology is about, that sense of being together in a classroom. You will not sit, okay, now we have benches on which we accommodate two students. There are times sorry, there are times wherein the class gets full and then some students want to sit ahead. All this is human psychology. Please refer to that. Okay, I'm giving you an example of an experimentation that I thought of looking at and studying it separately. But then this, as I've already said, is something which is related to human psyche and human associations as such also. So you'll see that there are different students. Now, coming to the fact of initially that sorry, initially the fact that we long to be in a class. Now, why I long to be in a particular class, I could again have different reasons and explanation for that. Okay, some classes are seem very friendly. Okay, now again you'll see that that class is not a live thing to happen, but then you feel that okay, this class is very friendly and people long to be there. You Otherwise you'll see that as friends you are split up into different subjects as such. But then some popular subjects, all of your friends come together in that particular class. Now, irrespective of which room that class is, again, you tend to gather in that class and you're very happy to be there. Then you'll see that when you walk into a class, different individuals are going to be placing themselves in a different way. Okay, as I said, some reasons could be different. Okay, you don't have any particular space to sit outside the class, so you formally enter a class, go and sit on the back bench as such. When you place yourself there, you could be involved in various things. You could be completing your notes, you could be reading novels, you could be answering WhatsApp, etc. So just think as to how an individual looks at his surrounding, his environment. Could it be natural? Could it be human? Whatever it is. There are other students who would be clustering together towards the end that the teacher is teaching, in the sense the first benchers, I would say that some students, they could be friends together, but at times they would not be friends, but then you would see three of these students gathering on one particular bench as such. Of course, now I doubt that till the point a medicine arrives for this particular virus that we have around us, we should not be allowing such a crowding at a particular place as such. But then that is how people look at these things as such. And then coming back to the fact that you have been missing class online also, was proved by the fact that within a couple of minutes that I posted the link the other day, we were together in what, 2 minutes 58 of you all joined, and of course then the number went up as well. So this is how the human psyche is about. And then I said that okay, I will be posting a link on Saturday, and I did post it at around quarter to 7, and by 7 o'clock we are what, around 25 of us. Okay, of course half the number, but then you'll see that a significant number again has joined this. Now, why does this happen? Okay, and of course some students do uh, message me individually and ask that, sir, why are you conducting a class at 7 o'clock? Why is it not happening at the regular time as such? Now, one thing, of course, we have it in our syllabus, and secondly, uh, that you start your lectures at around. Of course, your timetable reads that it starts at 7 o'clock itself in the class, in the college as well. But as far as in most of the cases, the majority of the classes start at a later time in the college, basically because we again are living in a human system. We understand that it would take some time for you to get ready and come down to the college, and that's why colleges don't start at 5 o'clock as such. But then, if you are to just get up and get fresh and sit for a lecture, we could just avoid that time that we are investing. I won't say wasting as such. I'll come to that point also. We are investing when it comes to moving from my residence all the way to the college and then coming to the class as such. Why I said investing is that as human beings, we learn every time we move from one place to the other. Okay, whatever type of, and we follow systems. Okay, now you'll see that when you are, say for example, now you start from your home and you come to the college as such. For your, you'll have to think about say more than a year before as to how people things were happening. And I think a year ago you were already into your 12th standard, so you were missing college for some significant period of time, even before the lockdown started in March last year as such. But then just imagine any time when you move out of a particular place and you are moving towards a particular destination. It's not that it's an open and shut case that okay, you open your minds when you are in the house and then you close it when you move, and then you come to the college and again you open your mind. You are always observing when you are moving. That's the dynamism of human systems as such. You may be taking a public transport, you'll see that you would be watching out of the bus. You would be seeing how the conductor is interacting with the people. At times you could be irritated with the driver and how he is driving the bus for you, and so on and so forth. You could be irritated with some students, other students from your college, other college, some other people who are irritatingly speaking at a very high volume in that. So or you could enjoy it. Okay, you'll see that somebody could be just putting on his her headphones, and could be nodding to the music in such a way that it amuses you. Feel happy about looking at that particular individual as to how that particular individual is enjoying herself or himself as such. So there are so many things that you tend to observe regularly as such. Now, while this is happening, you could do something, a lot of things at your individual levels also. While you look around things, you would also be thinking about the fact that okay, I have so many lectures today, I would be attending so many of them, and then I have to meet someone, then I have to pass on notes somewhere, I will have to xerox a few notes, and so on and so forth. Now, while you are in between these two, you'll see that you'll slowly pull out your mobile phone, and then you start checking in as far as how many what messages you have received on WhatsApp, and then You could just be scaling into your Facebook account. I know that Facebook is not into fashion these days, so you would be on your Insta and all those new apps that nowadays are called as social apps as such. You could be looking into how people have responded to what your posts are in the previous day, and then you start planning. Okay, what should I post this um, day as such. Now, while you are looking at these things, particularly when I'm referring to the device that you hold in your hand, called as the mobile phone as such, at the back end of the mobile phone, there is a lot of artificial intelligence which is working. Okay, they say all social media sites, etc., would put up in their um, policies, etc., that all these things are encrypted and your data is absolutely secret, and so on and so forth. I would refer to a news that we had day before yesterday that a significant number of data was available on the darknet from which company was that? MobiWik or MobiWik, I suppose. And all these data was Yeah, sorry about that. I got a glitch in the connection, and these things again are human systems, I would say. Another example of how I thought that early mornings we should not be having much disturbances as far as network issues are concerned. Um, but then we lost a couple of minutes in the, and what that has done is again it has delinked me from what I was referring to in the earlier part as such. But again, what I recollect from the fact that we are interacting with so many things at so many levels as such. Say, for I was just speaking about how human systems are interrelated and how an individual is actually looking at these systems from different points as such. In actually referring to these things, that say the example of the public transport system, a PMPML bus that you have taken up, and having said that, I hear that PMPML has been closed down for 7 days. This is again another part of the human system. I would say so. Uh, having said that, going back to the example that we were referring to, that while I am using the public transport now, why and how am I able to look at these things? Basically, because I am not actually involved in driving the vehicle as such, and that's why I can employ myself in so many things at one point of time. Now, just imagine, on the other hand, if what I'm doing is that I am driving my own vehicle as such, and when I am driving my own vehicle, then again, I would have, say, the other aspects to look into. That actually I would be abiding to various rules, and these rules are so unknowingly inculcated into any individual as such, that unknowingly we tend to follow them as well. Uh, I believe you're not able to see me, but I believe you're able to hear me. Can you just respond whether you're able to hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will, instead of, because you are not able to see me, I'll put up the syllabus. And while you look at the syllabus, you also can think of so many things that could come to your mind as such. I again don't know why I'm not able to share this. Okay, there seems to be some issue with something. Anyway, Um, so when I am riding a vehicle to my college, to a place of destination, unknowingly I have been taught that I should be driving from the left side. Okay, so I do drive to keeping my vehicle to the left. Now, again, with what type of vehicle I am using? See, if I'm using a cycle, if I'm using a two-wheeler, if I'm using a four-wheeler, my positions on those, on that website, or on that side of the road, that left side of the road, will also be decided on that as such. So you'll see that unknowingly we are following so many systems at one and the same time. And that's what makes it so very interesting, also these human systems as such. And as I said, uh, yeah, I think I can now share it. Let me see if I can. If I'm not, we'll continue. No issues about that. There seems to be some issue because I had left and then I have rejoined. Probably that's one of the reasons I am not able to look into that aspect. Anyway, so since you're able to hear me, it hardly matters as such. Then as I said, that I will respond to the system on the basis of the fact that in what system I am. Okay. And as I said, then when I come to a class, my positioning myself into a class would be different. I would be, say, there are individuals who would like to leave, who would like to be alone. There are others who would like to meet each and every individual who is present in the class. You will wave to them and you'll speak to them. Okay, so that's how we develop as a society, as such. Um, then, uh, as far as humans individually are concerned, I don't know whether I have spoken to you about this at an earlier point of time. I normally do, but then just in case we have not spoken about this, you'll see that the uniqueness of human being. Okay, as far as the biology of the uniqueness of human beings is concerned, let's start with there are definitely a few things that make us different from other animals, and particularly the social development and the development as a species that we have attained is all dependent on so many things, and so many things, and of that, biological aspects are going to be very, very important. Okay, possibly so as such. And those who are learning psychology, and unfortunately we don't have anthropology in the college, will know that the brain size of human beings is significantly large. Now, what do I mean when I say significantly large? The fact that when I compare the body mass ratio to the brain size as such, it's definitely large as such. I would want you all to think about, at any point of time in your life, if you have visited anyone in your house, or someone from your relatives, friends, etc., who have been blessed with a child on that particular on a particular day as such, and you happen to visit that, and if you can remember that day when you have seen that particular baby born as such, I'm very sure that you must have not gone into the biologics of that as such. But then, if you imagine, okay, you'll see that the whole say biological features of that particular baby is so very unique, in the sense, now if you remember, the head size tends to be significantly large then. Okay, at our age presently, you'll see that we find it to be in proportion, but at that particular age, you'll see that if you divide the length of the body in three parts as such, I would say one third of the length of the body is made up by uh, your brain size as such. And that's one of the most important thing, that it's because that our brain size biologically is more than enough to control our basic requirements, basic biological requirements, is that we ventured into humanization, we ventured into socialization. Now, what would all that mean? Okay, we moved from place to place, and then of course we evolved as animals who could communicate with each other using languages as such. Yes, we are using one language to speak with each other, and then of course we accommodate. As at points I feel that I'm not comfortable with English, I and my students are not comfortable with English, I tend to switch on to some other language. Okay, depending on the audience, I could speak in Hindi, I could speak in Marathi, and so on and so forth as such. So this has been possible basically because of some section of the human mind, or brain, I would rather say, has been utilized to see, language is something which is not a very common thing. Yes, we would say that there are different ways in which different animals communicate, and maybe we have not learned about those communication skills as such, but then human beings definitely have derived one particular method of communicating with each other, and that's language. And yes, we have been using our large size brains for that as well. Of course, development, extraction, technology, computers, etc., all of these are again so very important as far as and so very interesting as far as that particular aspect is concerned. Do Are there animals who have a larger brain than us? Yes, definitely there are animals who have a larger brain than us. But then, if you compare their brain size to their body size, if you compare their brain size to body size, you'll see that the proportions are significantly disproportionate, so to say, as such. Okay, so for example, an elephant possibly would have a larger brain size, but then the body that brain has to control is obviously going to be larger. A whale may have a larger brain than a human being as such, but again, the biologics of it is obviously going to be much different to that of human beings as such. Then, the second biological thing that may have happened is that man moving from being a quadrupedal to a bipedal animal as such. Okay, you'll see that most of the animals around us walk on all the four limbs that nature has provided them with, but you will see that primates, and particularly human beings amongst them, have been amongst those who very soon realized that they could do with the balancing of their body on two of their limbs as such. And eventually you'll see that in the process of evolution, okay, which has spread over at least a few hundreds of years and thousands of years, if not a few millions, you'll see that if you today right now look at your upper limbs and lower limbs, those who are from the science side will know that we divide these into upper limbs and lower limbs, and for many animals they are the same, but for significant animals it keeps on changing as far as the functionality of these appendages, as they are called, are different. So you'll see that our legs, the pair of legs that we have, are very much different. The bone structure, the muscle building on them is so much, very much, so much different as compared to our hands as such. Okay, and you'll see that our hands start at our shoulders, our legs start at our hips. So all the arrangement has so well been derived, devised, and evolved in the period of time, and all that is dependent on how a particular species wants to evolve its systems as such. Okay, now and that makes our lower appendages, that's the legs, so very strong as compared to the upper appendages. But this the forgiving of the strength that we would otherwise be requiring as far as our upper appendages are concerned has been compensated with the multiple use that we can put our hands into, the evolution of hand, and particularly the fingers, the various styles of fingers that we have, and the use of these fingers that we put to. Okay, and you'll see that as it goes as far as saving. So again, you'll see a saying in English and Marathi is concerned that not all the fingers on the palm of our hand are the same. And it's not a geometric development. You'll see that it's a biological evolution as such. It's how we wanted our hand to be, or we, in the sense, we as Homo sapiens wanted our digits on the hands to be. Now, unfortunately, you're not able to see me. I could have uh, demonstrated as to how we would be using them, um, individual fingers differently as such. Uh, in fact, we could use this as a benefit. You could, in fact, while you are listening to my lecture, look at your palms, hold out one of your palms, and just imagine, right, starting from the thumb. What are the various uses that you put your thumbs to? Of course, beyond the emojis that we have on WhatsApp, what are the various ways in which we use our thumb? Okay, as far as holding objects is concerned, you'll see that the thumb plays so much an important role as far as holding various objects are concerned. Okay, and you'll see that it counterbalances the strength in such a way that all the other four fingers are on one end and the thumb on this. Okay, though they balance so many things as such. Then you come to your index finger as such, and you'll see that the index finger also has the meaning in communication. As such, you point out to someone and you say, you come here, I'm speaking to you and no one else as such. Now you'll see that the function of the index finger is such that though we have just said that the thumb is such an important digit of the five digits that we have, but we still don't use thumb to point out at someone and say that you come here. Okay, it's the index finger that is being used. So it's the comfort of using that particular finger at a particular point of time which defines the function of that particular thing as such. As far as the middle finger is concerned, you'll see that invariably it is used in an abusive communicative language as such. But then you'll see that the reach of the middle finger is such that it tends again to be used for very unique functions as such. Coming to the ring finger, again you'll see that we have adapted to a social system wherein we call it a ring finger basically because when we come up in a social association, that's a marriage as such, or a ring ceremony as such. Okay, you'll see that we use that as such. Besides that, you'll see that again, once again, we'll be using the ring finger individually for various other reasons as such. And then we come to the last finger, the smallest of the digits as such. And you'll see that besides the fact that we tend to show it for our natural calls as such, you'll see that we use it to just shake away the irritation that we have in our ears. And that's just such a pleasant feeling that we have when we are just shaking it rigorously in our ears as such, or you are digging it in your nose as such. Of course, for digging your nose, you could be using any of these fingers, but definitely you don't use your thumb. as such. So just imagine the intensity with which nature has helped us to evolve our body system as such. Now, we have been speaking about individual digits as such. We could go into combined digits also as such. You'll see that in that ad of Pepsi, and I've seen Salman Khan doing it, the combination of the index finger and the little finger, and closing the middle two fingers and holding your thumb onto that. If you're doing it with me, okay, you'll see that you close your middle your third finger and fourth finger, and you place your thumb onto those, and you hold out your index finger and your little finger as such. What is that sign also called as nowadays? It's so much in fashion. Can anybody tell me what's that? Yeah, if you have been able to make it out, what's that sign called as?
Good luck, sir.
Huh?
Good luck.
No, 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 no. See, hold out your palm, your third finger and the fourth finger. Close it. Place your thumb onto those closed fingers. You are left with an open index finger and an open little finger. What are you using that for?
So
It's a
swag.
Yes, swag is that, and we see Salman Khan using it so much for that peculiar ad of that particular soft drink called as Thumbs Up as such. So, combinations of this. Now you'll see that when you meet someone who is so much close to you, but then you have not been able to meet him, her for a long period of time, and when they approach, what you do is you put out your index finger and middle finger and point it to them, and then you just shake your thumb to show that you are shooting him in a very communicative way as such. So you'll see that man has devised, or human beings have devised, so many things, and let me tell you that anthropology is all about that, and as to how we are using all these things which tend to be so very unique in us as such. Then, as far as bipedal motion is concerned, after as I said, that anthropology works around this, and we could just go on and on as to how we have been applying this, but then we have to move on. And I come to the third gift of nature that we have is that we have bifocal vision. Now, what does bifocal vision mean? If you imagine yourself, okay, if you imagine yourself, you'll see that as far as the placement of your eyes are concerned, it's so very unique, particularly when you compare. Now, all animals, majority of the animals do have eyes, but you'll see that different animals have their eyes positioned in different ways, and you'll see that in some insects you have multiple eyes as such. Say, for example, a house fly is concerned, and all those insects belonging to that particular family have what is called as compounded vision, and you'll see that it's not actually an eye as such. We may say so basically because when we define an eye, we are comparing eyes of different animals to the standard human being eye. Okay, nature is not looking at you as a standard animal, basically because you are a very late arrival on this particular planet as such. But in spite of being a late animal, we have developed so many human systems which we are, say, scheduled to come at when we go into the details of our syllabus as such. Going back to the fact that when we study things around us, we compare it to a baseline which is called as a human system as such. So speaking about the eyes as such, we biologically learned how an human eye is all about, and then we compare it to how an insect eye is going to be, how an eye of a fish is going to be. You'll see that as a fish, or in fact as far as a bird is concerned, you'll see that you have lateral eyes. You'll have one eye on this side, you'll have one eye on the other side, and just try imagining how the focus of this particular thing is, and why is it that while we are saying that the position of the human eye is the best, but how at many a times we long that, and we come up to these hypothetical situations wherein we say that how fantastic it would have been that we would have had another eye. And in fact, we have a mythological character in the name of Lord Shiva who's supposed to be having a third eye in between his two eyes as such, and that's going to be the opening of that is going to be a destruction of the world as such. Okay, so even in mythology, we have a lot of biology as such. And coming back to the fact that we think about having so many a couple of more eyes placed at the back of my head, and I would be able to see everything around. Just understand the complexity that the brain would have to handle, just in case you are looking at multiple things at the same time as such. That's what happens with a fish as such. But then the requirement is such that it has to stay awake as far as dangers around is concerned, and that's why you'll see that they are focused. It's not that all fish would have eyes placed laterally as such. You'll see that there are going to be some fish who thought that that process would be, needs to be changed as such, and they again have the eyes closer to each other as such. And you'll see that amongst majority of the animals, the space between the two eyes that normally tends to be there is the least, I would say. You could correct me if you can think of some other animal, but then you'll see that the actual space between two eyes is so very unique as far as human beings are concerned. And just before I go to the biology of it, something that strikes to me while I start speaking about the eyes is such that we write so much of it in literature as such, and we have n number of songs in the Hindi film industry, and of course you would be having them in the Hollywood. I don't follow Hollywood, so I would not be able to comment on that, but definitely in Hindi films we have such a large number of songs on this. So this is the adaptation that we have had of organs into literature as well as such. We use eyes for communication. We use it as sign language and so on and so forth. And to make our sign languages further impressive, particularly the female gender uses eyes in such a way that they decorate the eyes. Okay, you'll see that the eyelashes and the eyelids, and of course the say the shading of the eyelids, and of course using those lenses on the pupils as such, and then applying kajal and mascara. So you'll see that we have found so many occupations for individual um organs as such. Okay, we're speaking about hands, and you'll see that nowadays, while there was a time wherein cutting nails was supposed to be such a hygienic phenomena as such, nowadays I see that a lot of males and females are growing their nails, and of course they're decorating them with wonderful colors, etc. as such. And again, there is a fashion wherein you could be hygienic and fashionable as well, in the sense you cut your original natural nails and then you paste artificial nails onto it as such. So you'll see how man has evolved as a social being as such. Coming back to the eyes as such, okay, you'll see that what is the biological advantage that human beings have as far as bifocal or bifocal vision is concerned. When I say bifocal, what science do we understand behind this? Okay, I would like to. Unfortunately, today I'm not able to project myself, or I'm not able to present because I had left the meeting and I've joined in again. Now, when I join in again, I tend to be a third person to join, and that's why I'm not able to do these things. But then, if you can imagine, I'll come back to this when we meet next time, next Thursday as such. But you'll see that if you imagine you are listening to a headphone, okay, you'll see that you have those or earbuds as such. You place them in each of the ear, and you'll see that for best of the outputs, you'll see that it is said that the delivery of the music is digitized as such. And before we came to multi-channel digitized music as such, we the first of the developments, okay, the initial of the developments, I would say, in sound technology, sorry, was what is called as stereophonic sound as such. Okay, now stereophonic is basically placing two sounds, that's loudspeakers, in such a way that the sound waves that come out of them, okay, they actually cross each other, and you are supposed to be placing yourself within this cross. Now I understand that it's very difficult to understand to connect with what I'm actually speaking, but if you are able to, it would be fine. Otherwise, as I said, I would be speaking about it once again. And when you're going to place yourself in the say the gray area of the sound coming from both of the loudspeakers as such, you tend to get the best effect of the sound, and that's called as stereophonic sounds as such. I would say we have what is called as stereo vision. Okay, I won't say stereophonic vision. I would say we have stereo vision. Now, how do we, you forget whatever, if you have not understood what I was saying about this, you forget everything, and you can do an experiment along with me right now as such. Presently, you may be looking into your phone, you may be looking into your uh, computer screen as such. You are using both your eyes to do this as such. Now, what you can do is you take the pupils of your eyes to one corner of your eye as such. Take it to one corner, either left or right, and then try to look at the things which you can see there. Okay, obviously you'll see that you will be seeing things more prominent to the end to which you are actually taken your eye as such. But then if you try to fetch the thing which is there, say for example you're looking at a mouse that you have, or you're looking at a mask that you have, or you're looking at a pen that you can see from the corner of the eye. The right word I would say is the corner of the eye. Try to get hold of that. I would say that yes, you would get hold of that eventually, because you are in a very familiar environment. Try doing the same experiment in a foreign environment, and let me assure you that you're going to find it difficult actually to handle this, basically because of the fact that you are focusing your vision on that particular object using one eye only. You are using only one eye. Now, how does that affect, okay, how does using one eye affect holding a particular object or getting hold of a particular object in a foreign environment? That's what it's all, that's what I would say stereo vision is all about. Now you look at, once again come to, try doing it to the other end. Okay, if you have taken your eyes to the right corner, now try to do it to the left corner. Keep your head still and try to get hold of things which you would tend to see around you. And let me tell you that these things have to be at a handful distance from you'll see that you would find it difficult. Now you come back to, don't squint your eyes. Let me tell you, don't squint your eyes, don't bring them together. Move it to one end and then move it to the other end of your eye as such, and then come back to normal. What difference do you find? The difference that you find is that immediately when you normalize your vision, a section that is immediately in front of you, you are able to gauge the depth of it. Now, if I ask you to get hold of any object that is in front of you, you would be surely be able to do that. That's basically because now both of your eyes are actually helping you, okay, to get you a stereo vision as such, and a stereo vision is actually giving you the depth as such. And let me tell you that stereo vision is something that you acquire as you grow. Okay, you must have seen, I think I've given you this example at an earlier point. If not, it's a very good example to be there. If you have seen a toddler, particularly, if you have seen a toddler which moves, or a baby who has not been able to stand as well, will be fine for an example. If you find them around you at your local places as such, try this experiment with them. You'll see that when you try to roll a ball towards them and you ask them to catch that, you'll see that they at times, I won't say this happens with everyone, basically because it's a matter of practice also as such. So at times they tend to be confused at things which are coming to them, one, or at times they tend to be confused the speed that they should take when they are moving towards it. And that is why you'll see that toddlers fall off balance many times. Of course, one of the reasons that they have not learned to balance, but it's not the only reason that they normally fall off or they miss out on things, as far as holding them is concerned or moving towards them is concerned. All this happens basically because at a young age a baby has not developed the concept of three-dimensional vision. Okay, yes, that is a fact. At a young age you don't have a three-dimensional vision as such, and that is why you'll see that when you leave a baby alone and you ask it, don't try this please, when and you ask it to come downstairs as such, okay, for one step or the other, it's fine. But then if it's a whole staircase, please don't leave young babies unattended. And that is why you'll see that you find this instruction in malls, etc., that please don't leave babies unattended as such. Basically, because they don't have that sense of the third dimension. If you have ever observed, or you can do it at any point of time, that when a baby, in fact, is trying to come downstairs as such, you'll see that it doesn't have a concept unless and until it has fallen earlier. It doesn't have a sense of depth, and the fright is obviously not there. But that the sense of the depth is not there, is it confuses its mind, and as a consequence you'll see that it takes some time to judge the depth of that particular stair, and it is trying to put its foot onto the step which is lower in a very cautious way. Let me assure you that it's not the fright for a baby who has never fallen before as such. It's a sense of loss of three dimension, or it's a learning into three dimension, I would say. And thus you'll see that when we throw objects at each other at a higher age, okay, you tend to you have the right sense of the speed at which it is coming to you, which is not so possible as far as young kids who have not been into practice. Now let me tell you that a kid who has been playing with a ball every day, you go to it and you throw a ball, yes, it would catch it. But then if you are trying to do it with a kid who is playing with a ball for the first day, you'll see that it will take some time before it gauges the size of the object, before it gauges the weight of the object, before it gauges the direction and the speed of the object as such. So these are so many and of course, as I said, anthropology is all about this, and there are so many things. I've just given you three of the major achievements that human beings as a species have attained. That's basically the brain size, the bipedal motion, and of course the bifocal vision that we tend to have. Yes, there are so many other organs, exterior and interior as well, which actually make us unique when we compare ourselves to the other organisms as well. But that is what I would say are the best things that we should be looking at as far as human beings is concerned, before we actually go into understanding human geography and the aspects of human geography as such. That's all from my side for the day. Thank you for being there, and have a happy weekend. And once again, I would request you all to be at safe distances from people around you. Yeah, while I go, I'll just add up to this that obviously you'll see that there was a time wherein people used to say come together, unity, and all these expressions are so well defined when we say that we need to be together as such. And what is the clarion call today of the day as far as India is concerned? Stay away from each other, stay away at a distance of at least 6 feet from each other. So that's a very interesting thing, as again the dynamism of civilization is concerned, dynamism of human geography is concerned. So it's so very fantastic. The more you think about it, you'll see that the more uniqueness you'll find in, the more dynamism you'll see that you'll observe as far as the whole study of human geography is concerned. That's all for today. Stay home, stay safe, and let us meet next Thursday, probably with lesser amount of disturbance as far as the network is concerned. Thank you very much. You can leave the meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
so which book we refer for our second semester?
To start with, I have pasted the links of human geography for 11th standard and 11th standard particularly in my drive. I will do one thing. I'll paste the link once again. You can just go through the initial aspects as such. And as far as the advanced book is concerned, I'll come to that at a later point of time. You can start reading NCERT 11th standard geography, the human geography part of it.
Okay, sir. Thanks.